Okay, we are live on the YouTubes. All right, so I'm Dr. Megan Graff. Thank you for joining us. We have Chef Nikki with us talking about meal prep. So one, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're talking to us about meal prep today.
Well, my name's Nikki, and I am one of the coaches with Movement RX, but also a natural foods chef. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now. So mostly cooking privately in people's homes, but also teaching a lot of seminars, cooking classes, things like that. So I end up getting a lot of questions about how to kind of create like sustainable meal planning at home that's healthy and doesn't take a lot of time. So I figured, since everybody's kind of working from home nowadays, and we're not kind of in our typical rhythms where we have like breakfast, lunch, and dinner kind of set out for us throughout the day and kind of broken up by our work times. It's like we can kind of eat at any time, but then we eat at no time, and then we make poor food choices and snacking a lot. And so I thought it'd be great to share with everybody just some tips and tricks about how to meal prep better, and whether you live by yourself or your family, they'll help.
Yeah. So what would you say the first thing is that you tend to hear, or kind of the obstacle or complaint that people have about meal prepping?
I mean, whether we're in, surviving a pandemic or just normal life, everybody says they don't have enough time. So I think that there's this notion that like you have to have this full day of, like, every Sunday you go do your big grocery shop on Saturday, and then all day Sunday you're in the kitchen cooking, and then putting all of your meals into like little containers and labeling them, which is what I would do as a chef, like for a family. But that was like my job, and I could literally spend a huge chunk of the day doing that for them. But meal prep doesn't have to be like a huge chunk of your day. And you don't even really need to prepare all of your meals all at once. There's other things that you can do that are more economical of your time, that just make your meal times a lot simpler and faster.
So what's kind of the main like tip that you would give somebody that complains about time? Like, what's a quick, I guess, kind of first step of, okay, here's your baby step into meal planning that's a version of it, but it's not going to take up a ton of time like you're expecting?
Yeah, so if you're somebody who wants to do like a meal prep where you are creating like full meals that are ready to eat in containers, and you're wanting to prepare like a soup and a salad and maybe like a baked dish, like baked chicken or something like that, kind of all at once, one of the better things to do to save some time is when you are at the grocery store, buying things that are pre-portioned or pre-cut. So working in the food industry, I did meal prep for like food delivery services and stuff like that. The things that would take, hands down the most time are washing and cutting produce, or portioning out things to assemble them into the meals. And so if you can kind of cut down on those like time consumers, that's really helpful. And a lot of grocery stores now have like pre-chopped carrots, celery, onion for soups. They have pre-cut veggies for stir fries, things like that. So you're getting a little trade-off with money in that situation, because you have to pay a little bit more for the convenience of it already being prepared. But if it saves you a lot of time and you end up getting healthier meals in the long run, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, or you just get a slap chop. Those things still around. Save some time chopping.
Check out QVC.
So what's kind of the next thing that you people struggle with?
A lot of times I hear a couple of things. Probably one of the biggest thing is like people don't feel comfortable cooking or preparing foods that they know they're going to like over the week. I think one of the appeal of takeout is somebody else is cooking it for you, and it's food that you like and food that you don't know how to prepare yourself typically. And so I would say that probably spend like just a little bit of time looking around for recipes, like maybe like a go-to recipe, or ask some friends if they have like something that they regularly make that they really love and their family enjoys, like kind of week in and week out. Um, Another thing is like, think about those foods that you buy when you go to a restaurant. Like, so you see a meal on a, like we all have those menu items that like we kind of gravitate towards, like, oh, I always get eggplant Parmesan, or I always get the Cobb salad. Like usually people have things that they really enjoy every time they go out. And so it would be, when I usually do an intake with a client for cooking for them privately, what I ask is, what foods do you eat when you go out, and what restaurants do you go to? Because it gives me a really good insight into what their taste preferences are. And so even though I can't make it exactly like the restaurant does, I can make foods that are similar and know that they're going to really enjoy them. And you can do the same thing for yourself. You can think about those foods that you like to cook, and then either find a recipe book that you like, or there's, I mean, so many recipes online. And you can just type the word simple or easy, like easy Cobb salad or simple eggplant Parmesan. And usually somebody's found some sort of way to make it less labor intensive. Absolutely. And taste pretty much the same. So that's a good way to kind of get out of that like rut of like, I don't know what to cook, I don't know how to cook, I'm bored by my food. Yeah, just think about the stuff you order when you go out.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I definitely will, because my husband and I shop very differently. I like to pick my recipes for the week and buy the things for those recipes, and maybe a little extra produce here and there, but that way it keeps me from wasting food, versus he grabs everything in the grocery store and flies by the seat of his pants when it comes to cooking, which is great when he's cooking. But then, some on the evenings when I'll cook, I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? So I'll look up easy chicken and eggplant recipe, because we have chicken and eggplant. And so I'll do something like that. So again, that one comes down to time, people not making the time, or, taking the time to spend, 5 or 10 minutes, like you said, just type in like quick, easy eggplant Parmesan. And chances are you're going to find some kind of like 20 to 30-minute hack of how to make it, and they're delicious. And the nice thing is, recipes, typically when you search them, they'll have a rating on there. So it's like, oh, this one has 5 stars and this one has 3. Let me just go ahead and click on that 5-star recipe.
Yeah, and usually on recipes, they'll say like how much prep time there is, and then how much cook time, which will give you a good idea. And if you want to cut down on that prep time, again, like I said, just find stuff that's already kind of prepped for you. The other thing, like you were saying, with having, a bunch of things in the fridge that you don't know what to do with it. I think that a lot of times the thing that stops people is kind of the same thing that stops people when they like go into the gym, or like whenever you're trying something new, or if you need to get in your training for the day and you're kind of procrastinating, like really the first step is the hardest. Like just putting on your workout clothes and like going out the door is the hardest step. And once you're doing it, it goes by fairly quickly. Like you're getting it done, you're in the middle of it. And it's the same thing with cooking. I think people kind of psych themselves out of it. Like, this is going to take so long, it's going to be so hard, I'm going to make such a huge mess, and then I'm going to have to clean it up. That's another thing, is like when you're prepping your food, definitely clean as you go. Like when you have those recipes that say cook time, like say you make a sheet pan recipe. So like a sheet pan recipe is you just take a bunch of prepared, like cut up vegetables and produce, and you put them on like a flat baking sheet, and you turn your oven on and you just bake everything together on one pan, which is a great, if you look up sheet pan recipes, that's a great meal prep option. But while those things are cooking, don't just leave like a huge mess in the sink, or your knife and your cutting board and everything out until you're done eating your food, because then once you're done with your meal or packaging it all up, then you're like, oh, I have to clean this, when you could have really made good use of that cooking time to tidy up.
Yeah. So I think I also mentioned one of the things that is kind of another complaint, and was maybe a barrier to me, like when I kind of fall out of the habit of doing meal prep, is that like complaint of I don't like wasting food. So what do you typically say to that when that's something that a barrier to people?
Yeah, I mean, I do this even for myself, and I mean, I rarely waste food. I actually, unfortunately, had to waste a lot of food this weekend because our refrigerator died.
Oh,
I had to throw away so much stuff, and it was this, like, it hurt my heart. Um, but I usually, what I do is I buy things that overlap with other meals. So just think about like a certain ingredient, how you could use it in multiple ways. So you can get like a large bag of sweet potatoes instead of just like one or two for one recipe. If you get the large bag, people are usually nervous because they're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to use all these sweet potatoes. So you could chop them up and use them in a chili. You could cube them and just roast them with like some red pepper flakes and cinnamon for
my
breakfast.
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, you could like steam them. You could cut them into strips and use them in a stir fry. So there's lots of ways to use the same ingredients. And then you also end up saving money because you're not buying just like little one-off items here and there. Usually when you buy things in larger quantities, there's a little bit of a break on the price.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's huge, and kind of learning too, like it's learning to kind of enjoy the process and experimenting with like, okay, well, that was a little bit of a miss. We're going to eat that this week, but it made me think of this other, sweet potato dish that I've had once that, let me see if I can look it up and find a recipe. So I think by having that little bit of extra, it kind of gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit and allows you to be kind of creative and find those things that maybe you do enjoy that are pretty easy that you like to add into rotation. So learning to enjoy the process, I think, is something that's helpful rather than like, oh, this is a chore, I hate it. Try to find ways to make it fun and enjoyable can go a long way versus, like you said, like the dishes at the end of the night. Try to make it as easy as possible on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what's kind of another obstacle you see?
I think that usually the sticking point for people when it comes to eating healthier meals and not snacking all day is that the foods that we want to eat that we know we should be eating more of aren't usually like readily available or prepared for us. So even if you don't want to like go out of your way to do a bunch of prep and make actual meals ready to eat, one thing that I encourage people to do is to prepare veggies in advance, prepare some fruit in advance. So if you have like a big water, like right now is melon season, so like big watermelon or big cantaloupe, and then if you have veggies like eggplant or cucumbers and like all these things, prepare those first for either snacking or putting in foods. So like say you want to have a bunch of veggies ready for a salad, and you could mix up the salad any way you want. You could have chicken with it, you could have sliced sausage, you could have beans, you could have rice or quinoa or anything. But if everything's already prepared to go, when it comes to mealtime, all you do is you take all the things that are already ready to eat and you just combine them in a bowl. And maybe you have like one or two dressing or sauces that you have just prepackaged or whatever that are in your fridge, and you can, or even like a dollop of like hummus or something like that. You can just top it all off with that, and there you go, you have a meal. So I usually tell people to prepare your veggies and your fruit and your protein. So whether you're plant-based, so like rice and beans or lentils, like you can make all those things ahead of time and store them in the fridge. And then with your meats, you can do, a big thing of ground beef. You could do a slow cooker of shredded pork, just with very minimal seasoning on it. So like salt and pepper. And then once it comes to mealtime, you can kind of mix and match your prepared veggies and your prepared meats and or grains and beans and sauces to make, all kinds of recipes. And then you're not, very set on like a particular meal of chicken soup every single day.
Yeah, I think that kind of falls into the complaint that I'll hear of like and that I've had myself of I get bored, especially if it is one of those dishes that was a little bit of a miss, and I'm like,
Totally.
It's not bad, but man, I like one was enough, and I'm like, now I get to eat this the rest of the week.
Yeah,
I love that. It's a great idea, especially with the protein of like, maybe you saw that there was pork shoulder on sale, and so you get a huge thing of pork shoulder, and you can do, up to 2 to 3 recipes with it,
Yeah.
and you find a couple different varieties that you can try. I think that's a great idea. That
If you can nail just like a classic like roasted chicken and then a slow cooker recipe, and then like you figure out how to like roast vegetables the way that you really like them. Like if you can get a couple of those things down, that makes your weeks of prep so much easier.
For sure. So what else? Well, how can we help people get excited about meal prepping, and find ways to make it easier on themselves?
I think I like what you said about making it fun, because I think that people do tend to look at cooking like a chore. And, obviously like I'm biased because I cook for a living, but making it so that it's not so serious. Like I think a lot of times people are afraid, like you said, to screw up or to like make a meal and have it kind of sort of miss. Like that's part of the learning process. Learning how to cook is kind of doing it wrong sometimes, or overcooking something, or undercooking something, or putting too much water in your quinoa, or all those things. It's like you kind of learn over time what best practices are in the kitchen. And so the same goes for flavors. So like, I think we all have, those spice blends that somebody gets us for like our stocking stuffer, from Trader Joe's every year, that we don't know what to do with, because we're like, when would I ever use this like Moroccan spice blend? Like meal
I don't know what kind of relatives you have. I don't know that I'm getting any kind of spices in my
I mean, I like every time I go into Trader Joe's during the holidays, there's like so many different salts and so many different spice blends. And I'm like, man, this is exotic.
Oh, now that you mention it, I do have their pumpkin spice blend that I love putting in my coffee in the fall.
Yeah, for sure.
I should do some of that now.
Pumpkin spice blend is actually great to add to like chili in the fall. But yeah, that's a great opportunity if you have like some sort of like black sea salt in your pantry, or like rainbow peppercorn or something like that. Like just look up a recipe with that spice in it and be like, what does this go with? Or, if you are doing some of those classic, just really simple preparations of like roasted chicken or grilled chicken, or even like a beef recipe and adding in like coffee and wine or something, something like that. Just that's a coffee rub for your brisket or something like that. Just trying out the spice blends that you have and making the meal a little bit more interesting, and realizing, oh, I really do like curry, or I really do like garam masala. Like I never would have thought that sumac was so delicious. And so people usually don't step outside their comfort zones because they don't want to screw up. But like cooking, it's very like the bar is very low. Like it's not rocket science. Nobody's gonna die. Like it's you just try out some new things, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there's always another opportunity to eat the next meal.
Do you have, like, say in your years of cooking and experimenting, if you have a recipe that's a miss and you're like, I don't know if I can get my kids to eat this, I don't know if I want to eat this, do you have any hacks for salvaging food of either? It probably depends on the recipe, but
depends on the salvage. Yeah. I think when I would always caution people to undersalt when they're cooking, to like salt as they go and undersalt, because it is really hard to like undo too much salt. Man, I like usually the best thing I can do to salvage, like if it's something that like you just didn't really super like the flavor, or if let's say you like overcook like some lentils and they're just kind of like mushy, you can always if things get a little mushy, like, oh, I over steamed like the butternut squash, and now it's like it feels like baby food instead of real food. Looking up like a pureed soup would be really handy, like adding like a lentil soup, or like a sweet potato soup, or butternut squash and carrot and ginger and apple soup, something like that would be really easy to do to kind of salvage that. If something's oversalted, maybe just taking a little bit of it and then like, make some rice, make some like roasted Brussels sprouts and some greens and then some dressing, and then just add a little bit of like the really heavily salted, shredded pork that you made. And that way you're kind of distributing the salt among all the other things in your bowl. I love bowls. Like they call them like Buddha bowls, like sometimes when you go order in restaurants, but it's basically just like vegetables, fruits, a sauce, grains, beans, meat, meat, egg, whatever. It's just a bunch of things in a bowl, and then you have a dressing on it, and boom, like you have a meal.
Yeah. So for each meal, would you say there's a typical structure that you want to see, or that you try to adhere to when you're prepping, as far as like protein and veggie, and like how does that look, or what should that structure look like?
I think that, especially since we're all mostly at home, I think that our like snacking is probably super on point. Like we're probably not lacking in like the
Not lacking in snacking.
Not lacking in snacking. We're like on it with the peanut butter and the crackers and the handfuls of granola and all that stuff. So I would probably spend time focusing on like really nourishing vegetable dishes with your lean protein. Like I said, like people don't really struggle to eat enough carbs and fat throughout their day. I mean, like getting a spoonful of almond butter is like pretty easy, and grabbing like some dried mangoes pretty easy. And then you're getting in, even if maybe let's say you're getting like a protein bar or something like that, it's just kind of that overwhelmingly like sweet sort of flavor all day long if you're snacking for the most part. What usually people are lacking are kind of like that fresh hydrating like fruits and vegetables, the aromatics of like garlic and onion and herbs and spices, and then just getting enough of their protein for the day without it being something really super salty and sweet like beef jerky or those sorts of snacks. So I would say probably for those sit down meals or lunch, breakfast, like focus on something that's really fresh or something that's refreshing. Especially right now it's summer, it's like starting to get kind of warm here. People probably aren't wanting to like bake or roast things a lot because in San Diego we don't have air conditioning. So yeah, if you are somewhere with air conditioning, go ahead and turn on that. But I'm not doing that here. Making even something like smoothies that's just kind of bringing that like fresh foods into your day rather than like packaged, convenient, easy foods. And even if those packaged, convenient, easy foods are real whole foods, I think that what we need more of when it comes to actually intentionally planning our meals is the fresh stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So last thing that, I've definitely heard with patients who I have a little bit of a chat with nutrition about, and how it plays a role in their recovery physically. I've had people tell me like, oh yeah, I've actually started looking into it, and I'm trying to meal prep now, but my husband or my wife is just not on board with it. Like, do you have tips or tricks that you give to those people that feel like they're really having to go at it on their own, of a conversation they can have with their partner? Or again, just, what would you do in that situation?
I think I would just be really honest. Like, if you have a partner, hopefully you guys there's a lot of mutual respect going on there and a lot of caring for each other. Not wanting to like see the other person struggle or have a hard time. And so I think that if you are just vulnerable and you come up to your partner and say like, hey, preparing some meals in advance would like really make my life easier. Or, a conversation that happens in my house, which, it's unfair because I cook, but like my husband, works from home, and, sometimes he comes in and makes his own lunch, but sometimes he's like, this week is really, really busy. Can you have just some stuff that's like kind of ready for me to eat? Cause I don't have time to come in and like mess around with like putting things together. So like having that conversation, and being open to that, because obviously we're not responsible for the way other people react to what we want or how they decide to respond to what we're saying. So kind of just being open and saying, this is what I would really like. And be ready to take ownership over that responsibility. So like, if you really want meals prepared, or you want to prepare meals ahead of time, be ready to kind of like take the lead and run with it. And, you know, go grocery shopping, find some recipes, start making things. And I bet if you just start making things and having like delicious foods kind of ready to eat all the time, your partner will probably come around. Like nobody doesn't like having convenient, delicious food ready all the time. So even if it's something as simple as just like having fruit cut up and ready to eat, having some veggies cut up and ready to eat with like a dip, and then some hard-boiled eggs and you know, some roasted chicken that's like cut into strips or something. Like even something as simple as that, if it makes your life easier, it'll probably make your partner's life easier too. And just, you know, kind of maybe lower the expectations that like they're going to pitch in or something. Cause you know, maybe people just don't like to cook, or they don't care what they eat all day long. You know, obviously people who want to meal prep are people who care about getting in, you know, their full range of fresh foods all day. So trying to make their lives easier. And some people just, you know, they'll come in and snacks are fine, and then they'll find a way to eat a burrito at night and then go to bed and be fine. Yeah. But not everybody's like that. Some people want like actual real full meals.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. Like you said, the being vulnerable part and saying, you know, this is something that I really want to do for whatever that reason might be. You know, I would love it if it's something that we could to some degree do together. You know, it's my thing and I'm going to take ownership of it. But, you know, if you could help me with the chopping veggies and I'm going to do everything else. And then we can go on that bike ride, or we can binge watch that TV show. But I would love it if this is something that we could do together, and trying to come at it in that regard of like, one, it's something that we can do, spending time together. Let's try to make it fun in whatever way, food fight, but not wasting food kind of thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Having fun with it, but, you know, being open about like, you know, yes, this is something I want to do, but I would love to have help on it. I think was when I talked to somebody about it, that's what she was saying, is like, it's frustrating because I'm cooking for the whole family, and it would be nice to have just a little bit of time saver of I'm not spending an extra 30 minutes chopping everything. Like if somebody else could be doing that while I'm doing all this other stuff, it would be helpful. So just being mindful of the approach, I think, and just saying it like in a kind, vulnerable way, it can go a long way of making it an activity that, you know, potentially the partner wants to be a part of.
Or even asking like being open to what they might want to do. Like, hey, asking like, what about the meal prep process is something that you would have fun doing? Do you like going grocery shopping? Do you like doing dishes? Like some people don't like to cook at all, but they're totally fine doing dishes. Like it's like a Zen moment for them to just kind of like check out and scrub, you know? So I think any help along the way is help, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, in the kitchen cooking with you. As much as that may sound like fun, for me, that's not fun. It's like too many chefs in the kitchen. It's like you're doing it wrong, you're cutting it wrong. Like that's too much salt, you know, like I get like a little dictator in my kitchen. So it's, you know, if he can do the dishes, like that's great. But be open to the possibility that they could help in more ways than just helping cooking.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would you say are kind of the key points for people to take away, kind of wrap up things, you know, that you want people to get from all of this?
I'd really love people to realize that there's a lot that you can do to meal prep that kind of exists along a spectrum of like really, really meal prepping, like to the T, like full recipes, cooked to perfection, put into containers and labeled with each day and time and everything, and macros counted and all that stuff. There's those people who want to do that, and good on you. And then there's people who really just need a little bit of help, a little bit of momentum to like actually engage with their meals in a way that is like helpful and expedient for their day. So from like the very minimal help to the like extreme prepper, you can meal prep anywhere along that spectrum. There isn't just one way to do it.
Yeah. So what were some of the things? Let's see how much I was paying attention. So about prepping the protein in the veggies. I love that idea because I think that's a huge thing that would save time. The overlapping ingredients, that's another great tip. What are some of the other, main ways that people can make this easier on themselves?
Just by like doing those Google searches and putting simple or easy in front of it. That's just, I mean, there's so many food bloggers that have found all the ways to do all the things. If you do like having your meals prepared and just kind of ready to eat in a container, finding containers that you actually like and have lids and things like that are actually ready to put food in, whether they're glass containers or something that, you don't need to reheat, just like plastic ones. I think a lot of people struggle because they don't have enough containers, or the ones they have are the wrong size, or they don't have lids for all their Tupperware and things like that. So just maybe like a little bit of like preparation is good. And then the other one is just, save time, maybe just shell out a little extra dough for that conveniently prepared pre-cut food at the supermarket. And mix it up with some spices, like try new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. It's okay. It's just cooking.
Yeah.
There's always another day.
I think for me, what I loved when I was like really being lazy about cooking and like I just want to have healthy stuff ready to go. My slow cooker Instapot was huge. I had never used a pressure cooker until I got my Instapot, and it's awesome to be able to cook chicken like from frozen in like 15 minutes. That was awesome. So having a slow cooker and then sheet pan meals. I think I ended up with a recipe book that was literally called like sheet pan meals or one sheet pan meal, something along those lines. That tons of delicious recipes that are super easy. Really, it's just the prep, and then you throw it in the oven and you're done, and then it's ready to eat. And I would get some nonstick foil, so cleanup was super easy. You're not like scrubbing stuff off of the baking sheet. Little things like that yes, that nonstick foil is a little more expensive, but at the end of the day, like it saves me from, I learned the hard way how much you have to sit there and scrub those baking sheets if they're not coated properly. So those were the big things for me that were lifesavers with meal prep. But I hadn't thought about the kind of making the basic stuff, overlapping ingredients, and then prepping those kind of different parts of it. So I'll have to put those into practice as well.
Yeah, awesome.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, for those of you on YouTube and on Zoom, if you have any questions for Chef Nikki before we sign off, take this opportunity. You can put it in the chat or the Q&A. We'll check both. We'll give it a few minutes for you to type your questions up, and that way we can get them answered. Let me check on YouTube. All right. Thanks for hopping on this. Like I said, I've learned some about ways that I can implement into my meal prepping a little bit better. Thankfully, I'm lucky in that my husband is a lot like you in that he doesn't like me in the kitchen when he's cooking, and he does most of the cooking. So I will happily do the dishes all the time. Because I was always in that camp of, I don't want to mess up. And so I would kind of stick to the recipes I knew, but then I would also get bored of stuff pretty quickly. So I've gotten better about experimenting and learning to throw things together because of the way that we differ in our grocery shopping of like, well, this is what I have, so let me see what I can make with it. And it's kind of fun to do that of like, say maybe somebody goes to the grocery store and they're like, what is this English squash? I've never seen this before. Do a quick, like even in the grocery store, sometimes I'll do a quick Google search. You're like, okay, yeah, whatever, let me grab this and throw it together with some chicken or whatever, and just getting creative with the spices and with the ingredients as well of whatever happens to be in season that maybe you've never heard of. It's kind of fun to play around with that a little bit. So again, last few minutes, if anybody has any questions, But while people are maybe getting that typed in, where can people find more about you and where you are, what you do?
Well, I'm on Instagram as the Clean Plate Chef, and I have the cleanplatechef.com website that I don't contribute to a ton now because I have 2 little kids. It was definitely more of a project when I was, single and then just married. But now that I have kids, it's harder to blog all the time recipes. But I do have like over 400 recipes on that website already. So, I mean, there's plenty there to check out if you're new to it. And then on my Instagram, I talk about all kinds of things, food, fitness, just kind of tips and tricks, and share a little bit of my life. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's a good spot. We also have the
Thanks
nutrition
you have
challenge.
Yes, the nutrition challenge going on. So can you talk a
Nutrition
little bit
lifestyle
about
challenge.
what that is?
Yeah, it's a kind of a different way of approaching a nutrition challenge. Usually people are used to, okay, here's your list of yes foods and list of no foods, and like, let's go on a diet for 30 days together and see who loses the most weight. This is definitely not that nutrition challenge. It's through Movement RX, just at home every single day. There's like a little video of me and a task for the day to trying to just live a healthier lifestyle with your food. So maybe find some ways that maybe you are missing some opportunities to make better choices with your food. And then also some kind of like habits, ways to get into better habits, not only with how you eat, but also how you think about the foods that you eat. So it's kind of more of a holistic approach to your nutrition than just talking about food and, excluding certain things.
Yeah, that's awesome. So go to our website, movement-rx.com, to check out how to sign up for that challenge and follow along. And we did get one comment come in, and I think we just got this book, but we haven't gone through it yet. So somebody said, on the topic of throwing stuff together, there's a book called The Flavor Bible. It lists all sorts of foods and what they're best paired with. I find it very useful. Have you heard of that one?
I have it.
Yeah.
I had it for culinary school. And I also have one that a friend gifted me called I think it's called the Flavor Thesaurus. And it has like a color wheel on the front. I don't know if it's out of print, but that's also like a really great thing. So yeah, you look up any spice, any ingredient, and it just gives you like, this is great with rosemary and cilantro and winter squash, and like, just it gives you a rundown of all the things. It's fantastic. That's a great comment.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think, whether it's getting a recipe book that has to do with slow cooker or Instapot meals or one sheet pan, like if you're one that likes to have a recipe book in front of you, or if it's Google search method, whatever, just having that available is huge. And I love that, to be able to look at the different things to be able to use. Because for me, when it comes to learning about creativity in the kitchen, that is something I would definitely need to refer to. All right, well, since we have no other questions coming in, we will sign off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns that you think of later, you can reach out to Nikki on her Instagram or on her website, and we can link to those when we repost this video. But she's the Clean Plate Chef. And then also you can shoot us an email on our website, movement-rx.com, if you have any questions or want to get signed up for that nutrition challenge. So thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you again next week.
Bye.
See ya.